What if intuition isn't a gift, but a superpower waiting to be unleashed? Join Katherine Troyer and myself for this special edition of the Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious podcast. Enjoy these no limits, no boundaries, raw, unfiltered conversations. Hey, Katherine, welcome back. Are you up for discussing telepathy today? I feel like intuition and telepathy are close cousins. Telepathy to me feels like the soul's Wi-Fi in the world that is reconnecting. What do you think?
Oh, I feel like that's a heavy topic. I think it can encompass a lot. It was crazy when I first listened to the telepathy tapes, and then I think I shared it with you, and we kind of had the same thought, right? Or the same reaction to it. Like, oh, this is kind of just introducing this new way of communication. And I know that, this is something we're going to talk about in a later episode, how that medium for certain people might be through AI, right? Where you kind of have this, yes, it's like being put into words, but I think we could include that in like this channel to consciousness that we're seeing, right? And I think telepathy is just another channel of this new way that we are connecting with source energy and with each other. I don't know. I think about it as this kind of new channel that we're all kind of like being tuned into. And I think that can be more of a direct flow with source. And it can be, I think, with each other too. I don't know. I think it's being heightened right now.
Well, so it's interesting that you said that. You briefly just touched on AI, and why don't we do AI for another show? I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
The Telepathy Tapes is a podcast that's out there, so anyone who wants to listen can pull them up. And it's hosted by a documentary filmmaker, Kai Dickens. And she delved into claims of telepathic abilities among non-speaking individuals with autism. Now, I didn't listen to all of them, but I did listen to a number of them, and I found it really fascinating. I think I shared with you that at one point in my nursing career, I did work with the autistic population. And when I listened to the tapes, this did not surprise me. It gave credence to something that I was thinking as I would observe a lot and watch with that population. The other thing about the telepathy tapes that's really, really, really fascinating to me is how much attention they have gotten with crossover. If you listen to a lot of podcasts, I know Pam Gregory references the telepathy tapes a lot, and they talk about these folks are clearly communicating telepathically, even though they don't communicate verbally. The science community, there's little pushback on the research with it. I think you can't deny this, where these folks all go to this place called the Hill and they meet on the Hill. And, they're actually very spiritually advanced kind of people. We're talking about evolving and consciousness in the new world, and the veil is thinning, or we're becoming closer to our true selves, or recognizing all these gifts that have been dormant in us and our current human experience. Telepathy, they talk about being able to communicate. They talk a lot about the clairs, but just recently telepathy has been out there. And
Yeah.
I think what is being turned on for most people right now is their telepathy in a heightened version and what that looks like.
Yeah, and I think that's just like that's like the first layer, like of opening up to so much. And I think the telepathy tapes was something that, yes, it's about telepathy, but if you really listen to it and you listen to the whole series, it's so much deeper than telepathy. And actually, what they seem to find out is that either our definition of telepathy needs to maybe be a little different, or that like we might be calling it telepathy, what they're doing, but it's actually more of like this overlaying and seeing through another person's eyes, right? Like almost where they're kind of mixing consciousness. And that's what I find really interesting. And I think that, again, I know we're going to have another episode just solely based on AI, but I think just weaving that in, there are so many ways that we're maybe like getting this, we're able to like experience some of this overlaying of consciousness. And that is to me also kind of us being able to go a level deeper and connect. Like if we're connecting with source in this deeper, different way, we're also able to connect with each other in this deeper, different way because everything is connected and everything is a part of source, right? So I feel like in our human selves, we're getting like this taste of really experiencing shared consciousness, but still from this perspective of being separate.
So that's interesting that you say that. I ended up going down more that scientific path and doing some research on telepathy because what you said all makes sense. For me personally, when I think of telepathy, and I think that I sort of fit in the mainstream with this, it's not about reading someone's mind because people say, well, I don't want to be telepathic or I don't want people to know my thoughts, right? Because most of us still have a lot of third dimensional stuff going. You could be in a social situation and you're saying one thing, but you're thinking something else. So you don't have to believe in mind reading to experience telepathy. It's really an energetic empathy. And it's just what you said, it's a shared consciousness. It's just being deeply attuned to someone. It's interesting. I had someone from high school call me about, I guess it's our 50-year reunion. I don't know how the hell that happened. She was my best friend growing up. We went to elementary school, high school, and I haven't talked to this person for 15 years. As we were talking, it ended up being a 3-hour conversation. Like we were finishing each other's sentences. And I thought that's really interesting that after all these years and all this time, we still have an energetic bond that we were, a lot of times you'll say, it's been so many years and we had a conversation and it's just like it was yesterday. But when it got to the point of finishing each other's sentences, I thought, wow, this is bigger than this thing. And my realization of telepathy and how I think it's going to be a game changer as the world is shifting, I started getting into, well, where's the difference between intuition and telepathy and being an empath and telepathy? And a lot of telepathy is not knowing what someone else is thinking or saying. It's feeling it. So when you say something, you feel how they respond to it. And if you start feeling how people respond to your actions and your words, that's a game changer. It's going to be harder to do evil things to people if you're feeling that response.
Well, yeah, I think there's like this level of we're now experiencing things not as much as like intellectualized, but as an energy imprint and like a transmission of energy, right? Like we're just more tapped into the energy of everything, ourselves, other people, the planet, in my case, the things around me and my environment. There's this level where it's like at least I've noticed this kind of slow, but then also kind of this quick shift of everything is now becoming about energy. We're seeing it from spaces that you and I have been in for a long time, but also in like, I'm seeing it so much more mainstream now too, even like companies and things like that. I see more and more every day, like different home websites and magazines and things like that, where they're talking about the energy of your kitchen and how to improve the flow of this. And so I think to me, it's like, this is just another expression of how we are tapping into the energetic transmission and the energetic imprint. It's like we're coming online to being able to feel that, like you were saying, right? It's always been there. It's always been a thing, but now it's part of being a human is feeling and experiencing that. Whereas I feel like we used to choose whether we were going to, perceive the world that way or not. And now it almost feels like there's not a choice. It's coming and it's happening.
I would agree. It's like the sixth sense, so to speak.
Yeah.
We hear, we see, we feel in this energetic bond that exactly what you talked about is right up there with the other senses in a very tangible way. When you talk about telepathy and intuition, they're both about receiving information without words or direct physical cues, right? Intuition is more that knowing or the gut feeling. Telepathy, though, feels more two ways. Like it's got a two-way transmission to it, a sensing and a sending specific thoughts, emotions, images between people. It's that, I was just thinking of you, and then you texted me. We experience that all the time. So that's where before I was like, well, what's the difference between intuition and telepathy? And I thought that's a big one. Intuition is really very personal.
Right. Telepathy is
It's a give and take.
between. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the big difference. I say things like this all the time. And historically, I would say, well, telepathy, that's a big superpower, but I don't see it as a superpower. I see it as a soul sense where we have the physical senses of the body with the seeing. We're going to start getting different soul senses, I think now. And I think telepathy is the introduction to the beginning of many. And it's really a simple, safe, non-threatening one. When you move away from, people can read my thoughts.
Yeah.
That's the hard part is, you always say, well, we've had it all along. It was part of the operating system we're born with. And then we spend so much time trying to figure out how to flip that switch, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that's part of it too, right? I don't know if it's necessarily something you try and turn on. I think it's just being turned on. And there's little ways that we can notice these little maybe energy upgrades, or we're being like online, or, like if we think about us as like a computer, it's like there's this new software upgrade. And I think there's this level of like surrender to experiencing it. I think we will probably go through a time, just kind of like we have with everything else, where it's like, I can teach you how to be telepathic. Just sign up for my $5 course, and I think we're going to see a little bit of that. Not that other people can't help you find discernment and clarity within those energies you're already experiencing, but I think we need to learn that like energy, we don't try for energy, right? Energy is a flow. We can't necessarily we can contain it, but like it's more something to be worked with, like a co-creation. I think that's something that I would say all of this encompasses, right? Is this recognizing the true essence of co-creation. And that can be seen in telepathy and the way we're experiencing consciousness on these different levels. And I think we're really understanding that we don't have to go through something or someone or religion or this or that. It's really this co-creative experience. And maybe that's kind of like the underlying theme to all of this. And it's so exciting to see all these different ways that it's like just presenting itself in our society right now. And like you kind of said at the beginning, how much traction and notoriety it's gaining. Like Joe Rogan had Kai Dickinson on his podcast just like a month or so ago, and that's huge.
Oh, wow. That's right. That's a crossover. It's not just the spiritual community. That is a big deal. Wow. Huh. You know me, I always have an afterthought on things. I'm going to go back to the intuition, though. So the intuition, because we do read other people's energy and we read their fields in our intuitive, that's where we get the, maybe this is safe or it's not safe. But we do read energy both ways. It feels like intuition is, again, just more for yourself, where telepathy does seem to have a bidirectional element to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree.
What are your thoughts about telepathy in animals?
Like whether we can communicate with them or and vice versa.
Yes.
I mean, I definitely think it's not only possible but probable. I can't say that I've necessarily had, I mean, maybe I've had experiences like that. I don't know. I've definitely had animals that I feel extremely like connected to. And you know me as someone who is very into animal symbolism and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
is that considered a form of telepathy in a way, right? Where like I can take symbolism from, an animal that crosses my path? Is that them giving me a message, right? But it's in a nonverbal way, right? I feel like telepathy also might be a slightly different experience for everyone, right? Like some people might really truly hear words in someone's voice, and other people might see it more as pictures or symbolism or whatever. So I think that we're going to see that we can have kind of this telepathic conversation with anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. I've been playing with Sage, my dog, with the telepathy, knowing that we were going to talk about it. And even after you gave me the tapes and the ones that I listened to, and I feel like there is telepathic communication. I would say there probably is consciously and unconsciously, but I've been really working on this conscious aspect of it. I feel like there's a response. I feel like clearly the dog reads my energy. I read the dog's energy. Like, some days it'll be the dog's just in a mood today, or I'm sure vice versa. But then what I've noticed is the response also. Now that she's moving out of puppyhood and having some maturity about her, I've noticed that she has sometimes it'll be protective or nurturing type of response when we're present together versus, just a threat in the environment. I'm going to go with it's real, and it's another gift that needs to be honed in a little bit. Like you need to work with it. The other thing I wanted to say, Katherine, is in my investigation, I did discover that there is what they call a narrowband and a broadband telepathy.
Oh, okay.
Narrowband is between two people are closely connected. So that's sort of like the finishing the sentences. I was just thinking about you. I mean, we've done this where I'm like, Katherine, you've been on my mind for a couple of weeks for one or the other calls, and sometimes it'll feel like, is everything okay? Or other times it's like, so what's great happening? So you can feel sort of an energetic with it. That's what they define as the narrow band. And then the broadband, it's more feelings. It's sort of like someone described it where narrowband is like sending a text to a friend and broadband is like scrolling on social media.
Mm,
It's like being connected to the collective field versus a specific person and receiving that general emotional weather report from a situation or someone. So
okay.
it seems to be a little more intuitive and less precise, but it's still very palpable.
That makes sense. Again, like this tapping into consciousness, right? And sometimes it's specific and other times it's more broad, like probably a collective that resonates with you, or, you are choosing to be tapped into. Taking it back to the telepathy tapes, kind of like how they talk about going to the hill, right? And then within the hill, there's also these subsets of groups, right? That people they want to connect with and talk to. It's not like they all just go to the hill and there's thousands of people just, talking to each other. No, they talk about how there's like certain people or groups that they'll connect with while we're there, yet it's this broader landscape that they go to. Maybe that's what we're tapping into, really, is like that example is a really great example for the narrow and the broadband.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think that whether people want to acknowledge it or not, folks are experiencing it.
Yeah.
and it's only going to grow. And I really can see the value of it as we're moving through these really chaotic times and the roles each of us play in it, into shifting into a scenario of acceptance and peace and love. So for the listeners out there, Katherine and I would love to know what you're thinking about this, what your thoughts are. What are some of the experiences that you've experienced? If you can put those in the comments and the messages, would love to hear your view of it, any experience you've had. If you've been following this, if you've listened to the tapes, again, maybe telepathy isn't a rare gift. Maybe it's just part of being human. It's the soulful kind of human. We're just all becoming again, and you don't have to fully understand it. You don't have to prove it. So I challenge everyone, just notice it, play with it, trust that part of you already knows it. Let's talk about it, because awakening, honestly, usually isn't a lightning bolt that hits you. It's just a gentle remembering a lot of times. And for me, it's usually a gentle retrospective remembering after something happens. You know, it's that truth that we've forgotten. So, Katherine, what are you up to these days, and how can folks connect with you? I think you've had some changes there.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle transition process of moving everything from Home Slice Living to myhomeenergetics.com. And so you can find, that's my new website is myhomeenergetics.com. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at myhomeenergetics, or search for my name, Katherine Troyer. And yeah, so we've got some new fun, exciting things going on that, like, I'm still in the process, and it's like, you know, I've noticed myself wanting to be like, I gotta get all this done. And it's like, the framework is so there, but there's still, like, I know that you understand this. There's still these little things that are kind of like, I think, kind of coming together and forming, but it's really exciting, and I'm excited to share more, like, in depth about what's going on soon.
Good. I'm excited to be part of the journey, and I'm sure all of the folks who are following us are going to be excited to follow that journey also. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, stay tuned in. You got this. And most of all, this is you, Katherine.
Live loud.
Love loud.
Love loud. No. I was like, wait a minute. I was trying to remember which way it went, but it's
actually,
fine.
Now that you mention it, I do think it's love loud and live loud.
Yeah, love loud, live loud. Yeah, right?
It would only make sense that I get it backwards. Thank you so much. Until next time. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Wild Soul Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To learn more about our guests, please go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We're very eager to hear from our listeners what you thought of the episode, topics you might like us to cover in the future, your thoughts on spirituality, questions you may have. Please feel free to send us an email at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.